Hello.
Hello, YouTube. It's a new catchphrase. Hello, YouTube.
We're just gonna keep changing our catchphrase every year. 3 years, it's like beep, 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 beep.
We just speak in Morse code.
Actually, in a few years, we're just gonna be like for the entire video, but they'll receive it in their brains.
They'll feel it in their hearts.
Prepare your brains.
These are our favorite things from 2017. I watched actually last year's video, just preparing for this, and we were like, man, 2016 was a bad year. And I was like, oh, past us, you had no idea. 2017 sucked a lot. There were still things we liked about it.
So here's a list. Let's begin with films that came out in 2017. We saw a lot of films this year. We went to the movies like
over 50 times, I think.
Yeah, it's borderline 60 times.
Which is crazy.
We have no life.
We just go to the movies a lot. I know a lot of the employees there by now.
Yep. Hi, Jeff. We had a tough time choosing. We were talking about it earlier and we were like, oh, if I have like 5 or 6 options. But I'm going to pick Baby Driver. First of all, it is my favorite director. I love Edgar Wright, I love his style, so automatically that film wins points. I really like the way the film plays with the sound editing, the movie editing. It's really awesome that they shot the film to match with the music and didn't edit the film to match with the music. That is very difficult and must have been extremely difficult for an actor to do, to be like very conscious of the way you move.
I've seen like behind the scenes footage where they had to like redo a thing like 20 times because it was off from the music slightly.
Because I tend to edit as well with sort of a sound kind of feeling to it. I often will match just like the beats or a kind of sound or just the fact that it hits something and goes like shh. And I like to match that with something when I edit, so that really appeals to me. Has a lot of like that sharp, quick editing that I like from Edgar Wright, and it was hilarious. Just generally was really fun, a lot of cool action, such a delight.
The one that always comes first in my mind every time that I think about it is Get Out. I'm gonna say it's my favorite. It's probably like a top 3 really, because I can't really decide, but I'm gonna go with that one for today. Get Out is really incredible. I've talked about this in videos in the past, but I've become very interested in horror films. So when I get to see a good one, it's very exciting for me. Because unfortunately there are a lot of bad ones, but there are also a lot of really good ones. And this one is incredible. The acting is just fantastic. The way it's edited is just like perfect. It's really well filmed. There are some shots in there that are like incredible. And the whole like message behind the film is also very important, especially right now. I think it touches on things that we have to talk about, we have to think about. A great horror film will do that. It will give you something that you have to think about, something that you might not have seen that way before, and I think Get Out really achieves that. It gives you a perspective on something that you might not be able to understand otherwise.
But there are so many other good films!
Yeah, I have like a top 20 really, but like a few honorable mentions because we have to. For me, like I really enjoyed Logan Lucky. It's very funny, but also very touching. I found like I was like really emotional in certain parts in this movie, and I love a good heist movie.
3 Billboards. Outside Ebbing, Missouri, near?
Something like that, yeah.
Near outside Ebbing, Missouri. But that film was really great. It had really an impact on me. It was sort of like funny, but very dark. It was very an interesting character study. Different kinds of people, how they react. Felt real, even though there was sort of like a heightened reality to it. Shout out to Wonder Woman that made me
parkour all the way home.
Yes. When I came out of that film, I wanted to punch things. Like not people.
I felt like a badass. My final shout out is Lady Bird. It's real conversations, real people. It feels so authentic. The acting between the two, like the mother and the daughter, they have great chemistry together. It's just, it looks like you're watching real people. But we also watch a lot of movies at home. Typically at least one a week, if not more than that. My favorite of this year that we watched at home is Colossal. So if you haven't seen it, it's a movie with Anne Hathaway. It's kind of like a kaiju movie framed through like an indie film. Like that's probably the best way I could describe it. Action in it is really fun and interesting, but it's also like a very personal story. The main character is not instantly lovable, which is like kind of fun. Because she's like our protagonist, but you don't necessarily agree with her, which I think is cool. But we really see her progression throughout the movie, and it's really well shot. So I really suggest, if you haven't seen it already, to watch Colossal.
I think I've chosen John Wick, the first one. We watched it before going to see the second one. I hadn't seen it yet. And it was so great. That's the style of action. It was very fast, but it's very well shown. It's always logical too, so you don't have a sense that someone's shooting the same gun for like 400 hours and somehow still has bullets. Like it's very realistic in that sense.
Yeah, it's like anchored in reality.
Exactly, but it is still
reality.
Yeah, exactly. And the universe that's so easily created in that film, you feel like you're in the 5th edition of this film where there's already like codes in a universe without too much like, oh, by the way, this is the introduction to the world. No, it's just like, we live in there already. Shout out to Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was an amazing film.
Yeah, if you guys are looking for something like kind of light and fun.
Yeah, it's very campy. It was way more feminist than I was expecting it to be.
Which is always a fun surprise.
And she's just, and Elvira herself is so, like, sassy, and everyone else is so terrible.
Yeah. So our next category is music. So in both our cases, this year, we didn't necessarily discover a whole lot of new music. I basically just listened to musical soundtracks. But something that we did want to talk about is movie soundtracks from this past year. Personally, I listen to Atomic Blonde a lot. It amps you up a lot, so it's good to work with. Baby Driver's soundtrack is awesome. The Childish Gambino song in Get Out is amazing. Like this, it was a big year for music included in films. And I think it's very fun to have music be a key component in movies, because I think like the sound of it is so important and it can really add to the tone. And I feel like we included a lot of like actual songs in movies this year, not just like score, which is really fun.
I'm really excited this year because this year I read 2 more books than last year.
That's awesome.
Which is still just 6 books, but I did try to make more time for it. And that's why I got the 6. I mean, I was going for 12. So...
Well, it's 2 more than last year, so maybe it'll be 8 this year.
I'm slow... Oh, the pressure. I'm just going to read very short books. I'm going to try to finish some books this year, which is really thematic with my pick this year for my book. I finally finished Cyrano de Bergerac. I guess in English it's just Cyrano,
I think so.
By Edmund Rostand. Oh, I've tried to read this book. And it's not like I don't like it. That's not the reason that I've stopped reading it. But about like 10 years ago, I started reading this book and just got really busy after I read like an act or 2. And then, it's a play by the way, I didn't mention. This edition has blocks of text between the acts. They sort of either give a backstory on things or explore some themes that are apparent in that act and can be very academic as well. So maybe not for everyone. It's just that I got too busy and then I stopped reading it. And then I felt like it'd been too long, so I just had to start it again. This would be like the 4th time or the 5th time that I've started reading this play and this is the first time I've actually finished it. I'm very excited. It's a really interesting play. This is really one of the first characters that had that level of complexity, just the contrasting things, their actions being different to what their wants and desires and feelings say, doing things that are counterproductive to yourself just because you have like very mixed, complex feelings about the situations and the people. You cry and you laugh. It's very witty and funny, but it's also very touching. And if you don't have like huge chunks of academic stuff. It's actually a pretty quick read. A lot of nice sword fights.
So that was our last episode of Mind Linked.
And bonus points, and probably the thing that made me actually finish reading it, sometimes they show plays at or cinema, and they were showing it, so I wanted to finish it before I saw that, in case that seeing it freshly would lower my motivation to actually finish reading it because it was so fresh in my mind. So I sort of panic read the rest of it.
Well, when you have a due date, it always helps.
So thank you, Kevin Kline, for being in a play in like 2007.
So my favorite book that I read this year is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. Ian Reid, this is like his first fiction book, technically. He's written a lot of, like he wrote a very cute book about him spending time with his grandmother. So this is like one of his first fiction things. He's written short stories and stuff like that, but I think it's his first novel, I think. It's kind of like a horror novel, but I feel like it's not fair to place it in that category because it's more like a very tense novel. And it's in first person narrator, which is what I prefer, honestly. We follow this girl who is, well, she's thinking of ending things with her boyfriend. It's all very much in her own head. That's all we see. We only see what she sees. We kind of get like a glimpse through her dealing with her emotions, her dealing with what she has to do, what she wants to do, how she feels about people, about the situation that she's in. What's happening around her is very creepy and tense and really dramatic. Like there's some spooky things that happen, but we only see it through her eyes, which is particularly interesting and I think makes it even more scary because we don't know what the intentions are from the other characters. We can only kind of guess from her perspective. So if you're like easily scared, it might not be the best choice, but I think the way it's written is so interesting that that's more important than how scared you will be. So obviously, since we like to make YouTube videos, we also watch a lot of YouTube videos. I watch a lot of YouTube. It's probably not healthy, the amount of YouTube that I consume. But there are a few YouTubers that kind of stood out to us this year. For me, my main one that I'm really loving right now is Sophia Nygaard. If you guys have ever watched BuzzFeed, if you've ever watched Ladylike, she used to be on that. She mostly does, I want to say like beauty and lifestyle things, but her approach to it is so unique. It's very different from other people who do similar things. Like she'll do videos where she will combine every nude lipstick she has into one nude lipstick that she's created. Like it's stuff like that. So it's still kind of beauty, but it's very different. She does a lot of fashion things. She does a lot of history related things. Like she's done like the history of lipstick and that kind of thing, which I find really interesting as a history buff. She goes through like how it was created and the impact it's had on culture, and clearly she researches a lot for her videos, which I do appreciate. It's not necessarily just her in front of a camera, she's clearly doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and I find her approach very creative and her ideas, like no one else has done the things that she's doing. So I think that's very impressive in a world where most videos are kind of similar. And it's not like, that's not bad. It's just I find it's very refreshing to watch content that I've never seen before. And as a special bonus, just because I've discovered her this year, I've discovered Catherine Steele, and basically she is like a Broadway musical theater channel. Her content is honestly not for me. Like her content is mostly for people who want to do musical theater in real life, which is not the case for me.
I mean, maybe I
would like to. But I just find it really interesting. Like she talks about like how to prepare for auditions. She does a lot of musical theater makeup tutorials, a lot of really in-depth character analysis from characters that I really enjoy, and I find it interesting to see like her perspective on it. I've watched basically all of them. even though it's not for me specifically. So I'm suggesting it in case you might be interested in that kind of thing.
Every time it's your turn to talk, I start yawning in my...
Thanks, that's great.
And it's not that you're bored at all. It's just like, I think my brain's going, okay, don't yawn.
Not the time.
Not the time to yawn. My pick this year is a fashion designer called Justine Lecomte. Her videos are in English, even though I believe she's French. A lot of her videos might not be interesting to a lot of people, but it's very like basic at the heart of fashion and how fashion sort of ticks. She has videos on how to draw fashion drawings where you design the clothes. She has videos on how to tell if a shoe is a good quality shoe or not. She has videos about if you're this kind of body type, what kind of shapes would fit on you and what kind of things to look out for. So it's very like functional kind of fashion videos, but I found very interesting and educational. I now am capable of naming several kinds of shoes.
Yeah.
The next sort of category is board games. We've played a lot of board games this year, but only once. And I feel like when you've learned a board game and then played it immediately afterwards, you don't really get the full range of a game because you're still sort of learning. You're only sort of like catching on the tricks and strategies about halfway through the game, or maybe just even towards the end you're like, oh, if I would have done that,
And then, yeah.
I would not be stuck with 10 sheep. So we had a hard time choosing because we liked a lot of games, but some games we may have liked more on the second or third play where we were more comfortable. But here's our picks anyway. My choice is a game called Flick 'em Up, and I liked it because a lot of games are very constructed around a lot of cards, a lot of keeping track of several things, and I feel like Flick 'em Up has a different strategy to it. The game is set in sort of like a cowboy western, so you're flicking bullets to try to hit the other group's cowboys and knock them down. What I find nice is it's kind of, it a little bit requires you to move around as if you're playing pool. Even if it's a board game night, maybe you've been sitting for ages on chairs playing games. This game kind of requires you to sort of move around and sort of be a little more active. So if you're in a slum of like, oof, I'm feeling a bit sleepy, could be a fun game to just sort of wake everyone up. And the cactuses are so cute. They're just wooden cactuses.
My pick is a game that we have played like for several years now, but we played it a lot this year in particular. I really enjoyed Ticket to Ride. You have a map. We've played Europe, but we've also played India recently. You're building trains from one city to the other. You kind of get cars and you have to try and build tracks that connect these two places. So you get a bunch of little trains, you can put them on the map, and it's really fun, but still kind of relaxed, which is probably like my favorite thing about board games is you can kind of play, but it's not intense. You can still be talking, you can still like be snacking and having a drink or whatever it is. It's kind of a casual vibe, like it's quick to learn, and Elise always wins if she's watching this. I don't think she's ever lost.
Her love of trains have just made her win every single time. One day, Elise. One day!
We go to see a lot of plays that play at the cinema. It's super fun. It's a really different experience. You're watching a live performance, so it's weird because you get to like hear people coughing in the audience, like.
But in the speaker, that you hear the cinema sounds.
Yeah, it's very strange, but it's the closest that we can get to feeling like we're actually at like a show that's presented in London or a show that's presented in New York or something that you can't easily have access to. You can watch it from the comfort of your cinema, which is pretty cool.
Even like they have a lot of ballets and things. I think we should see more ballets.
Yes, I want two.
You want two?
2 ballets.
2 ballets, okay. Choose 2.
So we watched a bunch of them, but I think the one that kind of stuck with me the most is Yerma, which is a play that was kind of set in a box, which is probably the thing that I like the most about it.
Yeah, like a glass.
They're in a glass box the entire time, which is, it really gives you the feeling of like being an outsider watching in, which I think is really cool. The play is pretty intense. It deals with wanting to have a child and not being able to, so it was very emotional, it was very deep. We kind of see like how something like that can really deteriorate relationships and how it engulfs you as a person. The directing of it was very impressive. The use of the space and the set and like the nature and the even like just the tables and things, like the way they put them and then took them away was very dramatic. I really enjoyed it and I found it personally like very touching to watch. It was intense, like you left and you felt like you'd been through something.
Yeah, you felt emotionally drained.
Yeah.
So the play I've chosen is Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? I feel like that play is so yelly, but not exhausting.
No, because I was scared at the beginning because it starts straight out of the gate and
Yeah,
people are yelling.
Someone opens the door and is just like yelling. And I feel like it's a very, very good example of people arguing for like 72 hours and it not be exhausting and irritating and giving you a headache, because I've seen plays where the dialogue is very yelly. After a while you get sort of like an exhaustion. It's just so heightened all the time that things start losing meaning. But I feel like this play is so well balanced that you get those like slight moments of break just long enough so that you can start in again and it can have a lot of impact again and you're not like consistently exhausted. And it is quite funny and very tragic. You feel like the lives of these people that were so superficial at the beginning, you just slowly dig deep into who they are and what they've been through and what is really the reason why they're communicating this way. And the two contrasting couples bounce off each other so well with such different realities. Like that's what they were and now they've become this. Our last real category is moment or life thing that's happened in 2017. For me, it was our trip to PEI. Shameless plug, there is a video if you want to watch it. It's probably one of my favorite videos, actually.
Yeah, it's really fun.
It has a lot of fun imagey. I had a lot of fun editing that.
Because it was so funny, like while we were on the trip we realized there was a theme. Like our trip was themed unintentionally.
A lot of the time I watch the footage and then I sort of like, okay, this is kind of like the feeling I want to capture. This is kind of like the theme of the trip, or this kind of feeling is the general thing I want to focus on when I edit it. We were like halfway through and we're like, this is a theme. We have a theme. It's happened. And I feel like we jam-packed like a lifetime's worth of trip in that weekend. Like we did so many things and I have so many good memories of that trip. Weird activities, like things that were out of the box and different, and we had like a lot of like ridiculous inside jokes and we had a lot of fun. So I feel like that trip became very memorable for me.
I've been dyeing my hair now for 2 years.
Because you never used to dye your hair much.
No, I used to dye it when I was like a teenager, but it was just like highlights. 2 years ago I started to dye my hair different colors. My hairdresser laughs at me because every time I do something completely different. I've been all over the place, I've been basically every color. This year I dyed it like unnatural colors for the first time. So I had black and blue hair for a bit, and I had black and green hair for a bit. That's the last color I had. It's pretty much all gone now. It was very fun to have like very different hair colors, which was new to me. It was not something I'd done before ever. It felt like really cool. I felt like an anime character a lot of the time, and it was just like pushing me out of the box more than I had done in the past. So for me, like that was a very fun part of this year. I'm not sure what I'm doing next, so you guys will see in the next video what my hair looks like. I'm not sure. We'll see. So that was what we liked in 2017. There's a lot of stuff in there. A lot of stuff was harsh in 2017. Let's not kid ourselves, but
you have to cling on the things that you liked and were great.
So we take what we can get. And we just want to say thank you for watching our videos in the past year. It means a lot to us. We enjoy doing this a lot. It's very fun. It's a fun hobby for us, and we enjoy it if you guys go along with us for the ride.
So thank you very much. And we hope that you have a very, very great 2018. Hopefully it's not too traumatizing.
Like in 6 months we're doing videos about how to prepare for the apocalypse. That's happening.
So this is what you'll need. And we'd like to hear what your favorite things were. It's a big year. You probably have some things you liked. You don't have to answer all the questions, but if you want to, you can. We're always into learning new things that we could watch and listen to. Especially music. We didn't have a lot of music we listened. If you have suggestions for new music we should listen to, you do that. So write your stuff down in the comments. This is how I type.
It takes a long time.
Long time. Bye!
Kermit Flail.
Oh yes! Kermit is the best Muppet.
Yeah.
Fight me!